We've had these ongoing conversations, and y'all have all asked, like, how long do wines last in growlers? And we've been kind of thinking about what we can be doing as to answer those questions. And so what we've done for the last release, starting with the social distance, is we basically have growlered several growlers. We basically created a small library of wines, some that are under the swing top as you receive them, some under a crown cap. And that way we can, over the course of months, start to pull these wines out and hopefully basically a bottle a month for a year. So there's a case of each one of the wines going forward that we can, if maybe it's kind of a fun thing that when we need to open a wine on a prime rib night or some other event that we can kind of walk around and share these wines. But Craig then reminded me that before we had moved to this address in 2016, we had wines that had been growler that we had brought over here. And so we have wines that are pre-2016 in growler that I figured I would just open. I really don't know what they are. I know that there's a red and a white. I'm assuming maybe Lot 83, maybe Pinot Noir, but definitely prior to 2016 when we moved here. And I figured I would just open them, give you my immediate reaction, taste them in front of you, and just to kind of gauge a reaction, really, more than anything. And then I do have a 412, which you are all familiar with, that was actually part of the wine release of December 2019. No, December 2020. Yeah, so winter a year ago was when we did, that was kind of the last or the second to last Texas versus the World Wine Club release. And we released that 412 Tempranillo alongside of a Ribera del Duero Tempranillo. And so that wine has been in growler for a year. As we go through them, I'll tell you how they've been stored and kind of the conditions that the bottles are in. But I figured that would also be kind of a really fun exercise to go through so we can start to see how long these wines actually last in growler. So there's one white, two unknown reds, and then the 2017 412 Tempranillo Graciano blend this wine was put in bottle. It was released in December of 2020. Yeah, December of 2020. So I'm not really sure when it was probably put in that growler, probably that same month. The wines, I guess, every side, I'll pull the 412s aside. There's two reds and a white. I have no idea what these wines are. Craig, you may have some idea. I mean, just based off of color, these look like Lot 83 or Pinot Noir, kind of lighter in color. I have not opened these growlers. These are, excuse me, I got the wine burps. These were in the original growlers that we used, which do not have the same, I guess, strength of closure that the current growlers have. They have not been opened. They were moved from Lakeway, Texas to Johnson City, Texas, in basically March, April, May-ish timeframe of 2016. I have no idea what we're about to experience, but let's kind of see how they do. And if they're terrible, you'll know because my face doesn't lie.
I have no idea.
Like with any wine, make sure to smell it before you swirl it, particularly with wines that are totally suspect. They could be dead already, and if you swirl them, they'll just die even more. Okay, it doesn't suck. It doesn't smell like a dead wine. It definitely, initially smells like canned peaches. It doesn't smell like a wine that's oxidized. I can't tell what the varietal is. It smells fruity. It smells like canned peaches. Canned peaches is kind of a recurring theme. It's alive. It's got fruit character. It's still got acidity. It doesn't taste nutty or burnt or dried out. It tastes like it's mature. And for a wine that's been in a growler for 4+ years, I'm actually pretty surprised. There basically was a case of growlers in the winery building. This wine is kept at basically 60 to 65 degrees for the last 4 years and hasn't been moved. There is sediment on the bottom. Out of all the whites that were in the growler, this was the one that seemed to have the most appropriate color Yes, it's canary gold in color, but it was the lightest of that color compared to the other whites in the case. I'm delighted to see that it's alive. I would drink this wine. I would share this wine. I was not expecting that, to be honest. That's surprising. Okay, let's do the first red. I mean, definitely a bunch of sediment. I mean, it stained the glass. Color looks like a mature red wine. It's lighter in color to begin with. I would say almost like a faded garnet color. It doesn't look brown or oxidized in the glass. This is starting to get a little bit initial reaction. A little bit of ketchup packet, a little bit of Worcestershire sour sauce. It's a little bit VA, a little bit of that character. For me, this kind of reminds me of the old Lotte D3s, a little bit of a Sangiovese thing. I mean, to be honest, I don't think this is showing, it's called ethyl acetate. It's basically the same chemical that's in fingernail polish, along with some VA. It's not necessarily a pleasant smell. I mean, it doesn't smell. I think you can give this wine to somebody and they won't know what the fault is and they will drink it, or at least attempt to drink it. I think if you give this to a trained palate, they'll know what that smell is and not want to continue. I mean, the wine is not oxidized. I feel like in a growler, you would think that the immediate concern would be how much oxygen is getting through that rubber gasket. I think this wine has other issues besides oxidation. I think this is a wine from the early days, for a lack of a better term. A little bit, it's like Texas 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's more tart. It's cherry fruited. It's a little bit lacking some concentration of color. VA is noticeable. This ethyl acetate furniture, fingernail polish character is noticeable. I'm sure that was in the wine before, and the age is just making that aromatic a little bit more intense. So again, but oxidation, this wine is not oxidized. It has other issues, but it's not oxidized. So let's see what this one is like. This one, totally different aromatic. I don't get any ketchup packet, nothing vinegar-based sauces, nothing that reminds me of furniture polish or nail polish. Similar color. This is a little bit more kind of brick red, garnet to brick red, very light in terms of its concentration. I mean, you can see the writing on the page here. Aromatically, it's showing a lot of this tertiary character, kind of this mossy, dusty, library, old, churchy kind of character, mushroomy. Wow, that's actually really good. I'm totally shocked by these wines. You know, again, this concern about can wines age in a growler in a bottle that is not as good as the current bottle, for wines that were from over 5 years ago, in terms of their ageability, I think we're doing okay. This is definitely worth sharing. I wish somebody was here with me to drink this with me. If you want to come on. All right, let's try the 412s from a year ago. Again, 412s, 2017 vintage. This is a 70% Tempranillo, 30% Graciano blend. This wine has been stored in the classroom at room temperature, but all of these wines have been standing upright, meaning the crown, the swing top has not been down. These have been stored at a cooler temperature. This has been stored at a warmer temperature for the last 14 months. The color is perfect. It's like nothing has changed in the color. It's like as if you got it off the taps today. This wine was stored at room temperature, but it was in a box, so there was no color or light getting into that box. It was in a cardboard box that was so closed and sealed. Just a really pretty color, kind of to the left of cherry, going towards ruby, and color in terms of intensity. It's still got a decent amount of color intensity. I can't see the writing on the page. I would call it a kind of a medium plus concentration of color. Aromatically, initially, it's kind of muted. Doesn't really jump out of the glass right away. It still smells youthful, smells fresh and clean. When we first bottled or kegged and then put the 412s on tap, for me, it reminded me of like Old Spice, very fresh, clean, manly smell, very like ocean, sea breeze kind of character. It reminded me of like aftershave, like Old Spice, clean and masculine. I think this wine is a little bit more restrained. It's still got that character. It's a little bit more subtle. The fruit is definitely more forward. The fruit is kind of like fresh fig, fresh date, not so much of like a dried fruit. It's verging on dark fruit. It's still got that kind of pretty clean smoking tobacco, pipe tobacco character. That's really pretty. I like this better in Growler than on the current tap. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's an old keg. When I knew I was going to taste this today, I made sure I tasted the one that's currently on tap. This is really good. If you still have Growlers at 412s, you'll be very happy. I don't know. Just to kind of summarize, I'm pretty happy and shocked really by particularly the white and some of these reds, these older reds that stood up in a Growler. The idea of putting them in crown cap, I don't know. I mean, I think crown cap is an interesting closure because you can get different qualities of crown caps that are meant to permeate oxygen at a controlled rate, so they're not all created equal. And then you could probably age the wines even longer. So that being said, if you're sitting on Growlers and you want to age them, I think 3 out of the 4, and I think the 4 had a fault before it was put in a Growler. I think you'd be safe, to be honest. I would be willing to say age it, and then if you open it and it's not something that went off, I would replace it, even though I don't have that existing wine. I think I would trust the Growlers to hold your wines properly. I think being in a dark space helps, being in a cool space helps for sure. And so if you're going to age some Growlers, I would say age them. I don't think you would necessarily have any issues with it at this point.